Senator Graham of South Carolina joins us right now. He's on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator, good to talk to you. Thank you for joining us. There's a lot going on. Mitch McConnell just earlier said that the FBI report will be finished and we will have a vote on Kavanaugh. And I assume it's going to happen at some point this week. Do we have any timetable idea?
Don't know yet, but I think that's correct. So here was the agreement with our colleagues. And Chris Coons was never part of this agreement. He's a Democrat from Delaware. I like Chris, but he was never part of this agreement. What compromise has been reached for Chris Coons? He is voting no. He's asking for the investigation to continue around whether or not he's been honest about his drinking habits. So Chris Coons is a non-factor here. Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, and Jeff Flake expressed a desire for the FBI to talk to the witnesses around the Ford allegation and Ms. Ramirez, and to follow an incredible lead within a week. I think the FBI is about finished. Everybody can look at that report for themselves and see if it's changed anything. I hope we don't move the goalpost. Jeff voted yes in committee with the understanding that he wanted to see what the FBI found about these accusations, and hopefully we can get this done this week.
All right, let's talk about this agreement because it was supposed to be limited in its scope, and now it is expanded out further. We now see your colleague on the Senate Judiciary Committee, the great senator from the state of Hawaii, who wants men, by the way, to sit down and shut up, which was a pretty outrageous statement. But anyway, Senator Hirono now is saying she wants an FBI investigation into the, quote, ice-throwing report.
Yeah, that's where we are. So my dad owned a bar, and so throwing ice is like a good day in a bar. So the bottom line is that's all a bunch of BS, and she's not part of the agreement. She's the one that said the goal was to delay the hearing long enough to get into the midterms and have a Democrat replace Justice Kennedy in 2020. She said that. Not one media outlet ask her, what did you mean? But the agreement I just outlined, it was the three witnesses that Dr. Ford named, Ms. Ramirez, and if there are any credible leads within that world, the FBI will follow them, and that's it. And we're going to vote this week.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about, you were on the program last night on Hannity, and I thought you dropped a huge bombshell, and I was asking you, look, I have no idea how Jeff Flake's going to end up voting in this. I have no idea what Lisa Murkowski is going to do. I have no idea what Susan Collins is going to do. They're your colleagues. Maybe you have some more insight than I have, but to me, they're the ones that met privately with Joe Manchin, and they decided on this course now that it's an FBI investigation, but what was supposed to be limited in scope is now expanded out into other allegations. But if you fall one vote short, you came up with a pretty interesting and thoughtful idea that I kind of like.
Well, I think we've got the votes and then some, but here's the question. Does the Republican Party abandon Brett Kavanaugh? Do we legitimize the way he was treated? If the Senate is at 49, what I would like to see happen is to appeal the verdict of the Senate in the November election and take it to some of these states and see if the people in those states agree with their senator about Brett Kavanaugh. The swamp would abandon Kavanaugh. The traditional way of doing business is if he fell one vote short, just to pull the plug. He's never quit. I don't want to quit on him. So I think Trump might be different. I think Trump would say, listen, this man's been abused. I'm not giving up on him. Let's have an election to see if the vote in the Senate really represented the Trump states where Democrats reign.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, we have people like Joe Donnelly. He's a no, he said already. Claire McCaskill's a no already. As a matter of fact, most Democrats would no matter who Donald Trump picked.
That's right. They voted against Gorsuch.
All right. So now what's going to happen to Bill Nelson in Florida and Joe Manchin and Heidi Heitkamp and Joe Donnelly? And
well, that's a good question.
Martha McSally is a great candidate for the Republicans in Arizona who served her country with honor and distinction. I hope she wins. We certainly could use a win out in Nevada. Do you think this impacts the race? And do you actually think you're going to get the votes? And why do you think you'd get the votes?
Well, number one, I think we're going to get the votes because Jeff voted in committee. Yes. I don't believe the FBI is going to find anything relevant to this limited investigation that would show that Dr. Ford's claims are more credible and that there's anything new about Brett Kavanaugh in terms of the investigation. I would hope he would stay consistent with his vote. I think the other two, Collins and Murkowski, are friends. They're wanting the FBI to check the committee's homework. I get that. That'll be done here shortly. But you're asking me a hypothetical. I can't imagine how we would explain to the Republican Party that we gave up on Brett Kavanaugh because we're one vote short, when a lot of the states that led to that vote being short, Trump won. I do not believe North Dakota wants Heidi Heitkamp to vote no.
I agree with you.
So this is why you have an election. Appeal the verdict of the Senate, if we have to the people of the country in November.
Let me ask if you'd spoken to these red state, Trump state Democrats that are up for re-election. Have you talked to any of them?
I'm doing it right now. So
you mean you're communicating through Hannity? I'm not sure if they're all Hannity listeners and viewers, to be honest.
I doubt if they're listening, but I think we're fine. But here's the dilemma that this process has put us in. This is about the future of the judiciary. The stakes couldn't be higher. It's about the reputation of one of the finest men I know. It's about who would come forward after this debacle. It's about setting a tone and a standard that will destroy the judiciary and eat the Senate alive. So I know President Trump pretty well. I think we've got the votes and then some, but I think he's a different kind of politician, that he wouldn't let the system get off the hook, that if we had to as a last resort, we're one vote short, let's say hypothetically, we would take this issue to the ballot box in about 30-something days.
35.
If we can find that extra vote. That way we would have a good nominee, have a life salvaged, have a process saved, and the people finally get to speak up here. I think we're fine, but you asked me a question, and I thought about this yesterday. I said, if Brett Kavanaugh is on the ballot in some of these states, I think it changes the election. You see in North Dakota, there's a poll out today. The number one issue in North Dakota is Brett Kavanaugh's nomination. It's far ahead of anything else. 60-28, the people in North Dakota support Brett Kavanaugh.
Well, it's fascinating to me that the Democratic leadership is showing no support or comprehension or understanding of what their colleagues from states that are not New York or California have to go through in terms of re-election. But the reality is, I would even argue that if they do vote for Kavanaugh, it's only an election year conversion, and they're only doing it because if they don't, the people in their state will throw them out, but they'll probably go right back to being a party line vote with Schumer at the end of the day.
Well, I'm not a psychologist or a political scientist. I don't care. It's like, I'm a Baptist. I don't care how you find Jesus as long as you do. If you can figure out that Brett Kavanaugh is highly qualified and these accusations have crumbled, good for you. Now, here's the point. This has become the most despicable thing I've seen in Washington, and that's saying a lot. It will change the face of the judiciary forever if we condone it. So it's not a complicated issue for me. If we fall a vote short, let's take this to the ballot box and see what happens.
Let me ask about this whole process. Now, we've gone through, and I do think the Republicans, and I'm a pretty honest broker, I'm pretty critical of Republicans when they're wrong. I do think that they have handled this with the seriousness the charge deserves. I think
I'm so
the hearings,
pleased. Yes.
No, I think they handled it properly because
yes.
these are serious allegations. Yes. But she identified, and look, I won't go through the entire.
We don't need to retry this case. I've made up my mind. You've made up your mind. There are 5 accusations that are not verified or just made up, not true, outrageous. So it's not about Kavanaugh.
But the problem is, this is the environment we live in, Senator, and I warn this audience on radio and TV every 2 and 4 years. If you're a Republican or a conservative and you're running for office, you're going to be called a racist, a sexist,
that's the point,
a misogynist, a homophobe, xenophobe, Islamophobe. You're going to be accused of wanting dirty air and water. You're going to be accused of wanting to kill children. And there's going to be a look-alike of you throwing a grandma over a cliff. It is as predictable as the day is long. And now with Supreme Court nominees, this slander has been taken to a whole new level. Didn't you have an ice throwing incident when you were 9? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, adding ice to throwing Granny over the cliff is the new standard. So it's gotten ridiculous. It started as a brush fire. Again, back to Dr. Ford, she's been betrayed by the other side as much as anything else. We are where we are, but I think he's going to get through because he deserves to get through. I appreciate President Trump nominating. Sean, this is the one time when the country club Republican, the Trump Republican, the Tea Party Republican, the Libertarian, all of us are together on this because it goes to the core of, fairness. All of us are together. We're behind Kavanaugh. We're behind Trump. And I don't think anybody could have done this but the Democrats. We couldn't do it for ourselves. So they've done this in such a way as to unite the Republican Party in a fashion I've never seen.
All right, we got to take a quick break. More with Senator Lindsey Graham on the other side. All right, as we continue with Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, as we continue also from D.C., Senator, look, where does this go from here? You mentioned earlier that, in fact, that they're not going to be good people that ever want to say yes to positions like this. I wouldn't say yes. Who wants to live through this?
Well, I think the country has to ask the question. There's a report out today, or a poll out today, that if the FBI supplemental background check doesn't change things, 60% of the people believe that Judge Kavanaugh should be on the bench. So if that doesn't, all I can say is that the stakes are high. Who would follow Kavanaugh after this? They will destroy everything we stand for as Republicans if we legitimize this. It only happens to us. Why is it always just us? This is a time to fight back, stand behind Kavanaugh, get him the votes he needs. He's a great judge, and destroy what I think has been a process that will destroy the country.
I got to tell you, I don't think anyone would even want to run for office under these conditions. No. Even for you taking a strong position, I mean, you've been smeared and slandered, although by all the right people, just so you know, the same people that hate me too. So I feel... Well, I don't think you've had a finer... I will say this. I don't think you've had a finer moment in all the years I've known you. And, we've had disagreements over Elena Kagan and Sotomayor. There's two. But anyway. Your righteous indignation and your leadership has stood out, and I applaud you for all you've done. And I hope it works out the right way. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you for the research you do to prove fact versus fiction. You're the best on television. Talk about what actually is the truth.
All right, Senator. All right, appreciate it.